Bear with me. Okay, we are recording. I'm going to share the screen again. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Looks
okay.
Good.
Most of you guys are on mute. We appreciate that. We are going to go ahead and get started. And forgive me, this slideshow presentation, I whipped this together quickly. We were going to keep it non-slideshow-ish, but then at the last minute agreed that we should put something just so we have a visual. So it's not 100% completed towards the end, but no big deal. And just a couple of ground rules before we kick this off. This is called Brokers Action Bootcamp. And the goal of this was that Will and I got together and we were like, man, we want to give back. We both have a heart for teaching and mentorship, and it's something that is one of our core values. And so we thought, what a better way? Here's the first of the year. We want this to be a place that is safe, that we can share, we can interact, and ultimately kick butt. But being that it's a 1-hour class, we have to have some ground rules. So please be on time, and we're going to end on time. We're going to try and honor your time because we want to make sure that we're sticking within that hour. And hold on, there's a couple people coming in, so I'm just going to let these guys in. We are recording this, so if you guys want a copy of the recording of this when we're done, just reach out. But we are starting a new year, so we thought, what a better way than to get this rocking and rolling with an accountability group. And we're going to try to not go down too many rabbit holes. So if we have to steer the boat back on ship, then we're going to do that. We're going to try to have a format that is both holding all of us accountable, but also giving you guys a sense of like how to stay on task with the year. Okay. So we are going to try.
And I just want to add that if you're on this Zoom call, or if you're a guest today, chances are you're already with EXP. Ann and I are part of a collective group that we're all part of, and it's our intention, to bring things of value like this to all of us. We feel like as agents in this company, we have an opportunity. We all own it together. We have an opportunity to help each other and support each other's success in a way that we never have before. If we've been in other offices where you just wait for a class to be offered or whatever, this is coming. It's grown out of our desire to start the year off this way and share from our collective experience and hopefully inspire you guys to get into action and have huge years.
Yep. And by the way, this is bi-weekly, so we won't have one next Monday, but we will have the one the following Monday. And we already have a really awesome outline for that class. We're going to focus a lot on pipeline, how to nurture, follow up, and really get, return on your investment of sorts in this business. I'm actually really excited about that one. But moving forward, just here's kind of the ground rules. Did you want to add something, Will?
Only quickly, we're also going to include guests as we go along, starting next or with the next class, and then each class after that. We're planning to have at least one guest who can speak to something specific, like, I did a postcard campaign in my neighborhood, or I did X, Y, or Z, and these are the results. Like, we're hoping, to inspire you guys to get into action and start getting clearer about things that'll actually generate sales, like cash producing activities.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that one because we have some people that will be awesome to bring on deck to introduce to you guys. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. Before we get into this, Will and I some of you guys don't know me. Some of you guys don't know Will. Some of you guys know us. Some of you guys know us really, really well. But in case we're kind of, got a whole bunch of, people on here that are who the heck are these people? I want to introduce Will. Will is a very dear friend of mine. We've known each other for, I don't even know how long, maybe like 14 years.
12 or 14 years, I think now.
Something like that. We met at our previous brokerage. I have crazy respect for Will. He's an awesome family man. He is, I call him Mr. Luxury because I always joke with him that every time he calls or texts me, he's like, oh, I'm showing a $3 million house. I've got a $5 million deal. I've got a $2 million. I mean, it's just always like this higher end. Not that Will doesn't. And the greatest thing about Will is he's extraordinarily humble. He's funny. He used to be a writer, I think on the Dave Letterman show, if I'm not mistaken. He's an awesome musician. So he's not just a realtor, he has other hobbies. And he's just an overall, just a genuine, grounded, nice guy who always kicks ass in this business. And I just value his friendship. And it's awesome to be working in this environment at EXP with somebody you really just enjoy, and it's a friend. So.
Well, and I feel the same way. Anne is one of my dearest friends in the business. We met many years ago and just had a, instant rapport. She's one of the smartest and most accomplished brokers that I know.
Join the meeting.
She doesn't shout it from the rooftops like some brokers do that I often feel maybe aren't nearly as competent as they sort of present themselves to be, on social media and things like that. But Anne grew up in the business. She has an incredible legacy in the Portland market, with several of the finest companies in the business. Prior to joining EXP, she's one of those people that for me, when I get stuck on something, it's like one of my first lifeline calls is to call Anne, because I know how competent she is. She's a devoted mother and wife, very serious family oriented person too, and so I have crazy respect for Anne, well, as a friend and a colleague. And I think of Anne as somebody who's just a beast in the market in terms of like the number of deals that she closes every year with her little team. And yet she's quite modest, and so if you don't know her, you might not be aware of that. But she's a big leader in the local market. And she was the one that came to me and introduced EXP to me. And probably the only reason I listened, because I sometimes can be a little blunt. Hey, somebody has their microphone.
Hey, can you guys mute yourselves?
I don't know who that is.
So either. I was trying to go through the list, and I'm like,
somebody needs to mute themselves.
Looks like the admin can mute them.
There we go. I got it.
Can mute them. Okay.
Okay,
I got
thanks,
it.
Ann.
Sorry, I'm trying to police everybody's mics.
Let's move on, but I just want to say one last thing. Ann was the person who first approached me about EXP, and I had been in the luxury division of Keller Williams for many years, and I also was affiliated with Cascade Sotheby's International Realty for many years, and I probably wouldn't have listened to almost anybody else, but because it was Ann, and because I know the amount of business that she does and her history in the business, I was willing to listen when she said, we're going to this company called EXP. And so here we are. And it's been incredible adventure so far.
All right. Well, thanks, Will. Okay, that's the class, guys. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Okay, let's get into it, because this is nuts and bolts and I want to get serious, because I want everybody in this group to have a kick-ass year. I want you guys all to use the little button on the bottom of this page. Are you going to have a great year? I want you to do the wave signal. You don't have to unmute yourselves. Just use that little signal down in the area where we can all like see you waving, like, yep, I'm going to have a kick-ass year this year. Are y'all committed?
Yes.
Good job, Jackie. I see your hand. Annette, great. Stephanie, great. Keep it going. Raise that hand. You got to own it. You got to own this year, guys. Billy, right on. Donna, yes. Amanda, yes. Sorry, you guys are raising your hands so fast, I can barely keep up now. Wendy,
there's Wendy.
yes.
I love it, Wendy.
John, yes. Love it. Chelsea, okay, good. So what is your goal for the year? If you fail to plan, what happens? You plan to fail. I think we've all heard that statement before, and it is very true. So what is your daily, your weekly, your monthly plan at hand? Okay. So if you haven't done your business plan yet, do yourself a favor, take some time to yourself, take a whole day and sit down and say, what is it you really, really want for yourself that you are personally committed to this year? It can scare you a little bit. Okay. I'm an advocate of, add in more than you think you can do, but have a minimum standard for yourself for the year. And then how do you track it? So your business plan should show, let's say you want to sell 25 houses. That should be your ultimate result. But it's what you guys do every single day, every single week, and every single month that's actually going to determine those 25 sales. You can't just come out of the gates and say, I'm going to sell 25 houses. It doesn't work like that. Never has. Okay, we all want to sell X amount of houses. You have to do the daily activity and be consistent. So what does that perfect day look like? What does that perfect week look like? For me personally, what I've always found to help, I'm really energetic in the mornings. I like to get all of my hard stuff done in the mornings. Okay. I like to make all my phone calls, my texts. I like to use that time and energy to reach out to people so I can go goof off in the afternoon or go on appointments or deal with the chaos of transactions. Okay. So just know you don't have to have a perfect 8 hours. Sometimes people think, oh my gosh, I have to be 8 hours on all the time. That's not how it works. You just have to do the right things every single day to be consistent. Okay.
And I think that's where a lot of agents get off track, and we've all done it. It's easy to set a big goal, but then to not chunk it down to what are those daily habits and activities that help you keep score on whether or not you're truly like moving toward that goal and doing things that will actually build a bridge to accomplishing that goal.
Yeah. So what I would tell you guys is it's the habits that get you there, right? Like if you guys stopped, if we just go through the week and we're like, oh, I'm a great realtor. I'm a great realtor. I love helping people. I love this business. But you're sitting around waiting for the phone to ring or somebody to email you back, or you think, well, I called that prospect one time, but they never called me back. Or maybe you called them 2 times, they never called you back. What you have to do is get into this action of what is it really going to look like to have a true lead generation plan for your business. Okay. Prospecting, reaching out to people who know, like, and trust you, creating relationships with people new and ones that are lukewarm. And then how do you guys know when you're off plan? Does anybody know that answer? Does anybody want to unmute their mic and say, hey, I know when I'm off plan if X happens? It's okay to be vulnerable. How do you know when you're off plan? What doesn't happen?
Yes. I got one. Susie, I know when I'm off plan. You just feel it. You're all of a sudden you can't. Your phone calls aren't flowing and you are just going, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do next? And then you have to pull out your book again or your sheet, mine in my case, go, okay, where am I at and what do I need to do? But it takes me sometimes taking a day off to regroup.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. I will say for me, it's like, sometimes I feel like when I don't make the calls I know I need to make, whether it's following up with prospects or meeting new people or whatever, I literally feel gross by the end of my day. I'm like, oh man, like I wasted my morning checking emails and doing this and that and getting sidetracked. There's a million things that take us off track, right? So you got to get in that zone and decide if there's one thing that you have to have in your plan, what is it that will make sure that that habit specifically creates the activities that create the appointments, that create the conversations, that create the conversions ultimately into working with somebody to buy or sell, right?
Well, and for me personally, the ultimate reality check always is how many deals do I have in escrow? Because that's how we get paid. So, if I've got 5 to 10 deals in escrow at any given time, I usually feel pretty good. If I've got one, Ann and I talk about this a lot, it's like, uh-oh, what's happening? That's usually when you start digging in, and following up on every lead and making more calls and doing whatever you do. We're going to get into this further, but drilling down on whatever those core activities are, those 2 or 3 sources of business that you work and are reliable. That's usually when you start drilling down on those again, even harder.
Yeah. And I will tell you guys that, next week, we're going to be talking about the implementation of a pipeline and follow-up that is absolutely key, because the fortune is in the follow-up, as they say. And last week, just so you know, it's the first week of January, and I have deals in escrow. I have listings on the market. I have some listings coming up, but also I have a pipeline of people that I've talked to over the last year or so that have said, I'm going to sell this spring. I'm going to sell after the first of the year, or follow up with me or this. Or there are people that are just prospectives. There are people that I don't know where they're at in the process, but I need to call them. So I spent last week picking up the phone and just saying, how are you? What's your plans for the year? I did a CMA for somebody. I did a listing appointment. You've got to be able to have that flow as part of your core process in your plan. And for everybody, it might look a little bit different depending on what your business model looks like and how many homes you're hoping to sell. That's one of the great things about this business is there's so many different ways to build a successful real estate practice, but there's core activities and fundamentals that, we want to start to uncover for you guys and discuss, because you can take a shorter path to success when you start to
identify those things. Ann and I have talked a lot about the idea that, you know, all of us need to realize, especially if you're a newer agent, real estate agents are independent contractors. You know, your brokerage is not going to give you a business. They can give you good tools and maybe even some lead sources. Like within EXP, there are referral boards and things like that. But at the end of the day, we are all independent contractors. We're building our own businesses or trying to expand our own businesses on the platform of the brokerage that we're affiliated with. But your mindset shifts, I think, when you take ownership for that and you realize, okay, you know, I only eat what I kill, and what habits and actions and activities am I committed to making that happen?
So with your guys' business plans, raise of hands, and you can be honest, maybe some of you have to go back to the drawing board and look at your goals again. Do you have a habit or a daily ritual or a weekly ritual for obtaining the end result, which is X amount of houses you want to sell? Just a raise of hands for those of you who are like, yep, this is what my perfect week looks like, or my perfect day. Right on. We got 7 people so far raising their hands.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Very good, guys. Love it. So, and just so you guys know, your business plan is not hard and fast. You can adapt it and change it over the course of the year. I think a lot of people think it's got to be this perfect plan right January 1st, and then it stays that way all year long. No, it can be modified. You know, sometimes you realize you bit off more than you can chew and you want to pull back a little bit. Sometimes you want to increase that. Sometimes you want to like for me, I like to get most of my goal met by October 1st. That way I can cruise into November, December. So everybody's goals are different, and it's a living thing. Maybe you added another lever to your business. You're like, hey, I love this way I'm getting business now. I met this investor and we're doing flips, or whatever it is for you. It can adapt and change. Just be aware of it, but have it somewhere out in front of you, whether it's on a wall, you look at it every day, something that you can actually look and say, yeah, that is my goal, hell or high water. So here, let's talk about mindset for a little bit, because Will and I talked a lot about, like, you know, the thing I always tell a lot of brokers is this business is almost 100% mindset. It's like, where are you starting from? Where are you going? And this business can sometimes be brutal, right? Raise the hands. Oh yeah. But the beauty of this business is that if you work hard and you put what you put into it, you get out of it. So that's one of the reasons why I love this business. Yes, I love helping people and serving them at a high level, but I love the fact that what I put into it, I get right back out of. There is unlimited possibilities in this business. Unlimited, meaning you guys can make insane income in this business. You can make more than attorneys, doctors, we call it surgeon money, or you can make jack diddly. And we eat what we kill. I mean, it's kind of a funny statement to say, but the reality is if you guys made the commitment and said, yeah, I'm going to get on the phones and this is the group of people I'm going to commit to following up with every single week, you get to eat what you kill. Nobody holds you back. Can you all agree on that? Wouldn't it suck if somebody said, oh, when you get into real estate, you can only talk to 5 people a week? Yeah, that's the beauty of this business. I mean, you can make that choice. You can talk to 5 people a week, but if you talk to 25 people a week, your outcome turns into something different, okay? Now, this particular class, we're not going to talk about who to call and what lead generation methods work the best. We're just talking about the overview of a business model, the mindset, and kind of just the general, you know, way you have to kind of tackle your business plan and your daily habits. But who here wants to go out and get their unfair share? Raise your hands.
Well, and Ann, as we get into this a little further, we do want to talk specifically about some key differences between like core activities that are likely to be cash producing faster than others. But we'll get into that. We're not, the goal is not to go into any one of those things too deeply, but hopefully to help you guys maybe start to think even more clearly about the activities that you're doing and how they are driving your business.
So let's just take a second. I know we have a lot of people on this call, but I would like to have some interaction with goals. So we don't have to have, I mean, if you guys want to speak up about this, I would love to hear from everybody, but in just the spirit of protecting our time, can some people unmute themselves and say their name and their goals for the year? That's it. Just here's my name, here's my goal.
Just quickly, like five or 10 seconds at the most.
Just press your mic, unmute, and what's your goal?
I'm Megan Fumerton. Nice to meet you guys. My goal for this year is to obviously do higher in sales. I don't think a number really interests me. I think different numbers bring different sales. So it's not necessarily a number of houses. It's more of that result in number. So obviously I want to make it a reachable goal. So I don't necessarily need to surpass the number that I did this year. I just want to put a extra amount on the end of it.
Like a higher sales price?
Yeah, not necessarily a higher sales. Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. A higher sales price, just do more in general as far as, yeah, I guess you could say that for higher sales price and to create more referrals. That's, being a newer agent, touching back with those first time clients that I work with, reaching out to their friends. That's super important to me because word of mouth is just goes a lot farther sometimes than putting out a postcard and doing that. Mailers have never really been successful for me, and maybe I'm doing it wrong. So I'm really glad to be in this group to hear different stories. But yes, the top two are referrals and not just a number of sales, but the end result is being the higher amount at the end of the year.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, Megan.
Awesome.
Totally.
Anybody else?
Yeah, let's hear from somebody else.
I'll share mine. It's pretty simple. I just want to outdo what I did last year, like outdo myself, kind of compete with myself, and more listings. I really want to focus on getting more listings.
Awesome.
Good. Who else?
I'm just getting back. My name's Amanda. I'm just getting back. I was a showing agent and I moved to Tennessee and I'm just moving back. And so I have not done contracts or anything like that. So like writing my first couple of contracts this year and networking and just kind of soaking up all of this information that you guys are giving me.
Awesome. Thank you for
I
sharing.
know there's new agents on here. I don't want to call anybody out, but I know there's some new agents on here who just want to do a handful of deals, like 2 to 5 deals would be a big year. And that's okay. That's great too.
My name is Billy and I'm one of those. And I'm really here kind of as a sponge because I want to learn everything I can. I've got a minimal sphere and the bottom line is learning exactly where to start, and having you guys do this and this group is just awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Right on. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, Billy.
My name is Charlotte, and I just got my Arizona license in June. So my goal this year is based on my business plan. It's about 19 transactions. But I think this year I probably gonna be buyer agent only because I don't know this area and no friend, no relative. So that's my goal. Just be a buyer agent this year for 20 transactions if I can.
Awesome.
Hi, Charlotte. Welcome. Thank you for sharing that.
My name's Donna Austin, and my goal is to join the Ann and Will ranks, and I want to do 60 transactions this year.
Woo! Love it.
And attract 16 agents and build my systems for my major lead funnels.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Donna.
You bet.
I don't want to
Maybe, is there anybody else that wants to share? We can keep moving.
Somebody tell me a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Oh God.
Come on, Jackie, is that you?
It's me.
Yep.
I was gonna share. I made my vision board.
So this is an old stack in San
New
Jose.
year is behind me.
Yep, and it has a broken coil, and we need to
hurry.
find the leak, see if we can
Hold on a
replace
minute. We've got
Somebody-
somebody who needs to
fix it, or it
mute.
needs to be replaced.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute it.
Yeah, this is probably switching up a little bit. Apple,
Amanda, you need to
because
mute.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
It's all good. Okay, Jackie.
Sorry, no, it's all good. Don't even worry. I made my vision board. My business plan is on there. Essentially on a kind of smaller scale, I need to have 3 appointments with either buyers or sellers per month. So 1 a week, if you will. I want to focus on capturing listings because I've been a buyer's agent. And I think I can really kind of boost my overall volume if I can work with sellers more this year. So I'm excited to start doing that, and just having it physically in front of me, I think, is really helpful as well.
I love it. That's awesome. I love that you did your vision board. Let me share with you guys, even if your vision board isn't massive and has a bunch of stuff on it, just having one thing on that vision board will manifest it. I promise you. Can't say enough about that. That might be another class down the road.
Yeah. I want to interject too. If any of you are familiar with that book called Miracle Morning, that's a great book, but there's actually a version of it called Miracle Morning for real estate agents. And in the past, I've been a person that sort of scoffed at that kind of thing, like, oh, come on, it's one of those woo-woo books. But if you're a person who struggles with trying to figure out what are those daily tasks, those smaller tasks that lead to the bigger goal, that might be a book. You might get a lot out of it. I'm actually reading it right now myself, and it's really helpful.
Nice. Yeah, morning routines are huge. That might be something we talk about at a later date.
Hey, Ann, are you going to go into Act Your Wage in a minute?
Yes.
Can I interject before you touch on that? You guys, we hope that this is a place you'll want to come back to where we can be honest and real with each other and share things that really work. But we also want to speak for just a minute to the reality of our market right now, at least in the Portland metro area. The latest inventory report that came out in the market action report shows that our inventory is at roughly 1/2 of 1 month. So 0.60. That means, 6 months of so-called inventory or supply is considered a balanced market between supply and demand. We're at 0.6.
Yeah.
And so that's the reality of the market that we're operating in. And Ann and I were doing some research before this class, and we found a stat that in Portland, out of 11,260 agents last year in 2021, only 324 agents did more than 24 transactions. So think about that for a minute. 324 people out of just over 11,000. There's only 324 did more than 24 transactions. So on the one hand, I think, wow, that could really freak you out. But I've got this weird sort of wiring in my head where I think that's amazing. We can all do that if we just get focused on the right things.
Yeah, and that's a really sobering statistic, and we're not here to scare anybody, but also just to help you guys understand that there are more people not selling anything than there are selling, and you just have to make that decision that you're not going to be one of those stats. And I will tell you that every year I am not one of those stats because I make a choice. I have a plan. I work it daily. Am I perfect? Nope. Do I goof off and take days off and sometimes just go home early? Hell yeah. But the goal is that I love this business. I love it. I love helping people. Okay. So I am not going to be a statistic just for that reason alone, but I'm also I have a fierceness inside of me that does not let me that statistic will not even doesn't even register on my radar because I'm going to get my unfair share, as all of you will too. You just have to make that decision, right? Like everybody on this phone call, we are our own bosses, right? We're all self-employed. Nobody writes us a paycheck every 2 weeks. Nobody tells us what to do. We have our own standards of what we do. So let me give you a little example that helps with mindset, okay? I'm going to go back a step here.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's pretend, I'm going to take it off share for a minute because I just want to get personal here. Okay, is that okay with you guys? Okay. Yeah. Let's pretend for a minute that I'm going to pay you $500,000 this year, okay? I'm going to write you a check every 2 weeks. That's going to be to the end of 12 months.
They can't hear me.
We need to put you on mute.
Somebody needs to mute again.
There we go. I got her. I'm going to pay you $500,000 this year. It's a lot of money, right? Who would like to make $500,000? Just little fingers. Hi, that sounds lovely. Guess what? You can. But let me ask you a question. If I were to hire you and pay you $500,000 this year, would it seem reasonable of me to ask you to show up maybe at the office, say at 8 o'clock, or to start work at 8 o'clock, wherever you're at, virtually or at the office? Would that seem reasonable? Nod your head. And maybe I ask you to stay till 5, and maybe I ask you to work a few weekends and evenings here and there. Would that seem reasonable for $500,000? Would it seem reasonable for you to have a database, if I'm going to pay you $500,000, a database of people that at least have 200 people in it, and you're talking to them regularly? You're making phone calls, texts, sending out an email newsletter every couple of weeks. Does that seem reasonable to me to ask if I'm going to pay you $500,000? What about having a dynamite listing presentation that you know inside and out? Would it seem reasonable of me to ask you to have a listing presentation that you know inside and out? Would it seem reasonable of me to ask you to have a schedule for the week that you follow and that we can talk about results, execution, etc.? Does that seem reasonable to you if I'm going to pay you $500,000? Yeah. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, are we acting our wage?
I think it's really easy, Ann. I think it's really easy in this business for all of us. Realtors become experts so fast at multiplying by 2.5 or 3%. And so we can look at a list price, we can multiply the commission, and it's not hard to start to think about how easy it might be to make $500,000 in the business or more. But I think where the train goes off the rails for a lot of us is, again, in not getting down to those specific actions, those core fundamentals that actually lead to that.
Yeah. And here's the thing, for some of you guys on this phone call, you just want to make $100,000, right? That would be a dynamite kick-ass year, right? Maybe you left a job, you're making less, and you're like, I got into real estate because I want to make money. Maybe you're like, you know what? $100,000 is awesome, but I'd love to make $200,000 or $300,000. It is 1,000% possible to make that kind of money in this business. That's the beauty of it. That's why a lot of us got into it, right? Because it's unlimited what you can make. You just have to make a choice. What does your day look like? Like today, let's talk about it. Let's just let's go on off the rails a little bit here. Today, if you were going to make, let's just say $300,000 this year, like let's say from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, what does that day look like? What are you going to do today? One day, just one day picture. What would you expect of yourself today? What does your day look like? Does anybody want to take themselves off the mic and say, well, I'd probably do X or X?
Yeah, a couple of examples.
I can tell you, but I don't want to. I want you guys to be interactive. Tell me what it would take. Like, give me one perfect day. What would it look like if you're going to make $300,000? What would you do?
Okay, I'll shoot.
I love it. Go, Megan. I love it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to overtalk. I have a listing opportunity this afternoon, but until then, obviously, I want to be sitting in the office, trying to focus, being on a timeline of how many calls I'm going to make, planning out the rest of my week, given it's Monday. You know, what does my week look like as far as how am I going to set it up and stay on that timeline, not get distracted. You know, how am I drumming up my own business? Obviously, I'm just rambling. And I think everybody else has these same sort of goals during their week, is to hit a certain number of calls versus, I think like Wendy was mentioning last week in our own little tribe meeting, like take somebody out to lunch every week. You know, everyone's got to eat. So be taking out a lender, somebody that you've done business with in the past. I'm going to make that my goal this year, is every week, go somewhere different with somebody else, whether it's taking out a past client or, like I said, a lender. You're still like touching base and you're top of mind for those people. So really just setting myself up that way. I'm not really a seasoned agent, so I don't have a ton of referrals. And like I said in the beginning, that's one of my goals again this year, is to build that referral system. So that's how I plan on doing it. So that's me.
Awesome, Megan. Great job. Thank you for sharing that. That's some good things to do. She's talking about making appointments to go to lunch with people. That could be referral partners, vendor partners, people that you're getting in front of, right? What else? You're gonna make $300,000 this year. What are you gonna do today that's gonna ensure just one day? We're not talking about a week, just one day. Like, what would you be willing to do or have to do in your mind in order to accomplish that goal every day?
I am Jamuna. I would focus on the people I've already met with and spoken with. And like you said earlier, and it's one of my favorite sayings, the fortune's in the follow-up. I'm 4.5 years into the industry, and 95% of all my business has come from continuing to touch base with people I already had an initial conversation with, that they have some interest in selling. And so you keep checking in. And that would be what I would focus on, because the gold is right there in front of you.
Amen, girl. So you guys don't know Yamuna, but listen to every word she just said, because this girl, hopefully we can get you on as a guest speaker, because it doesn't take much. Sometimes the plan can be so extraordinarily simple. We complicate this thing, right? If I decided today, I'm going to tell you right now, I know for a fact that if I make 25 phone calls into my database every day, if I make phone calls into my farm every day, making $500,000 is not that hard.
Well, and look, you know, we all have busy, active lives. We have a lot of mobility in this business. I'm out of town right now. We took a trip at Christmas that got extended. My whole family got COVID. We're all healthy again now, but I'm not home. Like, we're trying to get home. And so I have legitimate things today that are interruptions in my day. If I'm honest, I can't sit around and make 25 phone calls today where I am and in the circumstances that I'm currently in. But I will still focus on a couple of core activities that I know are my best prospects. For example, I have a guy in town from overseas. He's from Shanghai, and he's looking at $3 to $5 million houses. And he sent me a list of houses. I will follow up with that email and report back to him on the list of homes we're talking about. I'll talk to those listing agents. I'll propose a schedule for later this week for showings. And I've got another listing opportunity I need to follow up on. Like, if I'm being honest, those two things might be the only things that I get done today that are cash producing activity. But those two activities potentially represent about $5 million in business. So even now, when I'm totally out of sorts, I'm not in my own space, my own office, I always challenge myself to at least make sure I'm taking care of those absolute highest value cash producing activities. I don't care if I'm sitting in a parking lot outside of a McDonald's, you know, in a town in the middle of Nevada. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there, and I'll still do it. I mean, we were parked next to a weapons training center in the middle of the desert last year one time. And I was out there because I got a good cell signal following up on a couple of things like that. So that helps me sometimes too, you know, when you just, you know, you've got limitations on your day, still focus on those cash producing activities that can pay you the most.
Yeah. Do you guys get excited about the fact that you can actually make your own destiny in this business that way? Like, no one's stopping us. Like, that's the beautiful thing about that. It's like, you know, I was my first job ever out of college was corporate, and they told you what to do and what you can't do, right? And you had a certain income and that's all you made for the year, whether you were super, super hard or not. You just had to do enough to not get fired, right? That's how like a lot of people's mentalities. But this job allows you to make extraordinarily income and to meet a lot of people. I mean, it's so cool. Like, you know, I remember the first time I had Erica's one of my team members, and the first time her very first transaction blew up. The guy couldn't afford to get financing. It was a long story. She spent like 60 hours with the guy. We celebrated that. I'm like, next, like, you have to learn how to go next. If something doesn't work out, next, who cares? So what? There's 1,000 other people out there that you can help and serve, right? Like, that's the beauty of this business. You get one bad client and you have to fire them, or you close deal and you're like, oh my God, that felt like giving birth. Next, right? We're not stuck with any one person. We can go out there and meet new people. And it's just a beautiful thing to like be able to serve people in this manner. You know,
and
excited about that?
What's that?
I said, does anybody else get excited about that? It's a beautiful business. It's a beautiful business.
Too, you know, I think if you come at this business from a mindset of abundance, you know, I think we need to know those statistics, like some of those statistics that Ann and I referenced about the current state of the market. However, I'm also a big believer that if you have a true heart to serve others and you really approach this business from an abundance mindset, I can't tell you how many times it's happened where I lost a client or I lost a piece of business and it felt like a kick in the stomach. And I just decided to just go on, like exactly what Ann was just talking about. And over time, I've learned to trust that almost immediately after one of those terrible experiences that do happen sometimes in this business, something else falls into my lap that seems almost magical. And I feel like it's almost like the universe saying, here you go, here's another opportunity, or here's a better opportunity. You know, if you just soldier on and you just don't give up.
I'm going to tell you guys a little story, a side story. And this guy always stuck in my brain. So in my last brokerage many years ago, it may have been 8 years ago now, there was a guy named Colby. Okay. Kind of a younger guy. He had 3 kids and a wife. He moved from San Diego to Portland. One of his in-laws or something lived there. And he literally started with no database. Okay. He didn't know a soul. That guy, no joke, to this day, it impresses me. He showed up every single day to the office before anybody else. He was there in the office. He had a little tiny office. He literally stood up. He didn't even have a chair in his office. He wouldn't allow himself to sit down. He'd get there first thing in the morning. He would make phone calls all day, cold calls, expireds, for sale by owners, circle prospecting. And his goal was 35 transactions that year. And I thought, good luck with that. You don't even know anybody, right? Because that's what we all go to. We're like, you don't know anybody, you're not going to get any business. That's actually not true in this business. And the beauty of it is you don't have to know a lot of people in this business. But he would come in every single day and he would leave about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And on Saturday mornings, he would show up early and he would leave about 11 or 12. So he worked a 5.5-day work week in the office, making his phone calls. And I would start seeing his signs popping up all over town. And I remember calling him one day and he would not take if I tried to knock on his door and have a conversation with him during the day, he would not answer the door. He was absolutely in his zone, no distractions. How many of us get distracted? There are 1,000 distractions that happen every single day, right? If you work from your home, you might have more or less depending, but the reality is we all have distractions, right? But this guy would not even open his door. He wouldn't even check his email. Okay. He was committed. And by the end of that year, he sold like 38 houses. And he stopped coming into the office a little bit less. Instead of doing 5.5 days, he would do 4 days. Now he decided he was going to have a 3-day weekend. Guess what? He still sold and slayed it. Why do you think he did that? He didn't make any excuses. He didn't say, I don't have a database. I don't know anybody. He just said, all I know is I need to learn the scripts and the dialogues to talk to the enough people and the right people, get the appointments. He killed it. He made the rest of us who've been in the industry a while look like, it was just like, that is just living proof. That always stuck out in my mind. He was a neat guy. He actually ended up moving back down to San Diego, which he told me is the hardest market to be in, the most competitive market in the country. There's I think the statistics are every 3rd person's a licensed real estate agent. But the point of the story is this. If you guys made the decision, you could even say, I'm going to, for the next 6 months, I'm going to get in the zone. I'm going to get on the phone at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get off at noon or 1. My goal is to talk to people, see if I can serve them, add them to my database, go out and get an appointment if they need my help or if they're interviewing agents. And that's it. And he did listings. Do you see the paradigm shift in the brain? It has nothing to do with, are we too young, too old, database or no database, distractions or no distractions. You guys are the boss. If you don't hit your goals this year, whose fault is it going to be? Do we have extreme ownership for what we're going to do this year? Do we own what's happening? Or are we going to blame the market? We're going to blame COVID. We're going to blame blah, blah, blah. There's 1,000 things to do. The people who stop blaming other people and take extreme ownership and say, you know what? It's time. And I'm going to be vulnerable here for a minute. Donna knows this story. Donna Austin knows this story, sweet thing. I think it was 3 years ago. I started my January, actually in December of, I don't even remember what year. It was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even know now. 3 years, let's say 3 years. I felt really slow in my business, right? And I was coming into the new year and I think I literally had 1 or 2 deals in escrow, which is for me very slow, okay? But I also felt like my pipeline wasn't thick, right? You always want to know that your pipeline has people in it, okay? Which we will talk about on the next call if you guys show up. And Donna and I had this conversation and Donna's like, well, you just gotta make your calls. And of course I know this. I've been in the business a long time. And Donna and I had this great little thing where she was talking about how if you just pick up the phone, I'm like, I know. And so I decided, you know what? I have a lot of people in my database and I haven't talked to some of them in no joke over a decade. Okay. So I made a decision that I was going to sit down for 3 hours, 2 days a week. That's it. 2 days a week, 3 hours. I was going to make my phone calls. Okay. I actually grabbed my team member. We did the same thing. She was at my house. She sat in the kitchen. I sat in my home office. We just decided, you know what? We need to get into the habit again of calling our clients and checking in, right? Because who's guilty of not calling your past clients? Raise your hand. Let me tell you, that's the #1 guilt profession of any good broker. But I said, screw it. I'm calling my database and I need my pipeline to fill up. No joke. There were some days I didn't have anybody pick up. And then there was one day I had 12 people say they were going to buy or sell that year. 12, not lying. Talk to my team member. Within 36 days, I had $18 million of a pipeline. Now, some people absolutely worked with us. They bought and sold that year. Some people fell out because something didn't work out. They didn't get their job offer. But I literally had people go, oh my God, I can't believe you're calling me. I just interviewed for a job. We might be moving back east. That's what happens when you pick up the phone. So some of you guys have a database and some of you don't have one. And we're going to talk about that next. That's the next piece of thing, because this is huge, okay? Despite me not being perfect at ever calling my database, I still feed it. I add people to it every week. I send emails out twice a month in a newsletter. I send 2 video emails out a week. They get something from me every single week, okay? So let's talk about that. Let me go back to the screen share here real quick.
Well, and while you're doing that, Ann, I'm going to interject you guys.
Please.
We touched earlier on the fact that as real estate agents, we are all independent contractors, period. Like that's the reality of it for most people. So when you take that on and you own that, you know, it starts to change how we operate.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to mention as Ann gets into talking about database a little more is that at the end of the day, once you've been in this business long enough, and I know many of you know this already, but Ann and I talk about this all the time. Your business is your database. I mean, some people even call it your data bank. And so if you have one now, great. Think about how you can grow it and start to improve how you're engaging with people. If you don't have one, start one, even if it's just as crude as a Excel spreadsheet. I mean, your phone is not really a database.
Mm-hmm.
So Ann, let's go into that a little deeper right now.
Okay, so let's talk about database. So I call it a data bank, okay? Because these are people that know, like, and trust you for the most part, maybe not all of them, but these are people that are likely going to give you, at least in my world, my database always gives me, when I look at my numbers for the past year, 50% of my business always comes from my database, okay? These are Sphere. These are people who just know me. Maybe they've never done business with me, but they know me. These are people that I've done past deals with. So past clients from 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, even, I mean, whatever. And just so you guys know and understand, I have people in my database that are, yes, they know me. I also have people in my database who don't necessarily know me. They came over as a prospective seller, maybe on a website. I stick them in my database and I drip on them with my video emails all the time. So they become my database. But you just need to know that 50% of your deals ultimately over time, not right away if you're newer, ultimately over time will be your database. If you're only counting on people to give you referrals for your business, not a bad strategy in the essence of the concept, but in this day and age, if only referrals is the way to go, your business might be limited depending on the number, the volume you want to do. If you're planning on doing, 5 to 10 deals out of referrals, you can probably get that done. But if you're going to grow a business where you're going to eventually do 25, 30, 50, 60 deals a year or more, you're going to have to add other legs of your business. But the one we're going to talk about right this minute is some of you guys are saying, I don't have a database. Would that be a true statement?
Yes.
And it's okay to be vulnerable. I talk to brokers all the time who've been in this business for 5 or more years who don't flip and have a database, okay? And I'll tell you why you don't have a database. Because A, you think, I don't know that many people. And number 2 is, as realtors, we're ADHD. We don't want to sit down and write out somebody's name, email, phone number, address, or call them and bother them for that. Is that right? Those are the 2 reasons I can think of that I hear. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't have a database? Okay, so let's talk about it. If I had to do this business over again, I would sit my butt down in a chair on a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, and I would write out every single name of somebody I ever met, knew, or even barely knew, okay? And then I would proceed to get their name, their phone number, their address, their email. Okay, let's go through this excuse really quickly, because this is huge. This will change your year first and foremost, okay? Your database is where you harbor all these names and phone numbers. I started with an Excel spreadsheet, so can you. If your excuse is I don't have a CRM or I don't know how to use the CRM or whatever, start with an Excel spreadsheet, something super simple. over time, if not immediately, add it to your database. If you're at EXP, which I think 98% of you are, you have KV Core. That is a database. That is a very robust database. There is no excuses for that, okay? And then you're gonna tag your database as far as VIPs. These are people that give you referrals or have done business with you. You love them, they love you. If you called them today, they'd be like, Ann, how are you? Okay. There's A, B, C. You can categorize these people. I have people I categorize, right? I know if I call certain people, they're going to be warm and fuzzy, and other people are going to be like, what's up, right? But start your database. And I'm going to tell you right now, everybody can put 100 people in the database. You know how? Let's think about this for a minute. It's not just friends and family. It's not just people you've already worked with. Anybody have a hairdresser? A barber? My hairdresser gave me 2 deals in the last year. Do you guys, if you've gone to community college, a trade skill place, anybody go to those? Did you meet anybody there? They all go in. Did anybody have a job before real estate? People you like, know, or whatever, did they go in your database? What about social media? Can anybody, you guys, get on Facebook or Instagram and find people you know or kind of know you? So one of the things that I do regularly is I will meet somebody very quickly, maybe for a hot second. I throw them in my database. Everybody goes in your database eventually, okay? Everybody. At least an email, if not an address, an email. But you guys, we all have access to the tax records. So if you have a name, a phone number, an email, you can probably find them in the tax rolls. Does anybody play the game at open houses or when you meet someone, where do you live? Oh, you live in, Tualatin. Great. What part of Tualatin? All of a sudden, you know their full name. You can find them in tax records and throw them in your database. I have people who call me all the time because I consistently talk to my database via email that call me. I barely know them. If I don't even remember some of these, be like, hey, I get your emails and I want you to have you come talk to me about selling my house. Okay. That database does not have to be people that really, really know you. I think that sometimes we have that mental block, like, oh, they have to know me. Heck no. Put everybody in there eventually, just label them. Okay.
Yeah, the newer you are, the less likely they are going to know you. I mean, there are some newer agents in our group who don't know anybody, and some of them have done really well in their first year in the business. We may have some of them as guests in future weeks, but don't fall into that trap, the limiting belief. Another limiting belief that comes up a lot for all of us when you start doing this is it's easy to think, oh, well, maybe they're on the do not call list, or maybe they don't want to hear from me, or I don't have permission to email them. It's so rare. And I've done that myself in the past. It's so rare that anybody gets angry at you for sending them information that could be of value about real estate, or just being in touch with them. Once in a while, you'll get, the weird email from somebody who's like, you sent me a postcard and it wasn't on recycled paper stock. But just don't fret about that. Just get into action around this topic, and it'll pay off huge dividends.
Now, as a side note, some of you might be in a new market and you really don't know anybody in that market as much. Here's another thought. I used to do circle dialing. I used to call into neighborhoods and say, hey, we just sold this house in your neighborhood. Have you considered selling? We had more than one buyer interested. What would be a sales price you'd be interested? They might say, no, we're thinking about staying. Okay, well, great. Can I be a resource for you with this real estate market? Would it be okay with you if I send you some stuff that might be of value? Sure, here's your email address, your address. Now you have them in your database, okay? That script can be used to anybody. You might meet them in Starbucks. My barista at Starbucks gave me 2 transactions. So everybody who knows your face, or who you meet very quickly or long-term, or maybe you meet with them to talk about listing their house, they put it off for a year, put them in your database. Last week, I sat with my pipeline and I literally took my perspectives. A lot of them were not in my database yet. I stuck them in my database because last week I sent out an email newsletter, and guess what? I had 8 people from that email newsletter email me back saying, please provide a status of what my property value looks like. So today, after this phone call, I'm getting on the phone to call these people back and provide them the information they said. When you have a database, you have something to talk to. Anybody do videos or want to do videos? The most powerful way you can talk to your database is via video. I send out a video almost every single week to my database. And those people see me all the time. And guess what they do? They call me when they need to buy or sell. Okay, so database. In the essence of time, since we're kind of running up against it, I just wanted to cover that. Anybody have any questions on the database?
Questions or comments quickly?
I do.
Yep.
Say you're handing out sorry, let me back up. Your barista at Starbucks. Is that something you're handing a card to? Do you get her information to touch back with her? I just want to touch a little bit on when you're handing out those cards to people that you don't know that you want to try to connect with. Is it easier to get their information so then you can get in touch with that, with them first, or do you just give them a card, let them connect with you?
Great question. So what I ended up doing at one point was we were talking and she's like, because she got to know me over a period of time. She's like, oh, real estate. And so every time I came in, she would ask a question or be like, how's the market or whatever. And I said, hey, let me get your email address and I'll send you what I send everybody that helps them keep aware of the market. Super simple. If you talk to people like they're real humans and you're there to give them a value, they will give you their email address, you guys. If they don't, you don't want them anyway. But if you're like, hey, I give some pretty comprehensive information on what the real estate market's doing, would you like to get that? Would that be of value to you? Would it be okay if I stay in touch with you? Yes, that would. Great. What's your email address? I mean, no one's going to say no. I mean, very few people.
They almost never say no to that. And in this market where there's so few homes for sale, if you add another little piece of verbiage to that where you say, we also hear about a lot of properties that are off the market that sometimes never even hit the market. Sometimes we share information about that. Would that be of interest to you? Almost nobody will say no to questions like that.
Yeah.
And they give you their contact info.
Yeah. So I can't stress it enough. If your goal today is to hear anything, start a database. Start with 50 people. Once you get to 50 people, get to 100. Once you get to 100, get to 150. And it can take time. But start with 50. Every single person on this call can get 100 people in their database, guaranteed.
And I would add to that too, as you start to do that, if you're, literally starting from scratch, that's great. Also, friend those people on social media if you can.
Yeah.
I'm having to go back in my own business because my business is actually closer to 100% referral and repeat business. Anne has always been a big inspiration to me because she's always searching for additional ways to generate leads for her business. And I learn a lot, just being honest, from her about some of the things that she does. But in my own business, we're going back right now and reorganizing our database and making sure that we're connected to those people in social media. I mean, it's so easy to overlook. A lot of our key people, I'm not even connected to, if I'm being honest, with them in LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. They're not all there, but most of them are. That is so powerful. Just those two things. If you start organizing a database and also making sure you're connected in those places where it's very easy to share information about real estate, even if it's just a market update or a home you sold or something, that's powerful.
Yeah. So I want to protect our time. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to leave you with just a few things. Raise your hand if you guys have gotten something out of this so far. Has this been helpful? Is this worth your time?
Yes.
Okay. It's an hour, so it's not a lot of time. And I know we can go off on a lot of little rabbit trails, but we're trying to provide value here. So what I would leave with you guys is this. So next week, we're going to have the topic of pipeline, lead follow-up, lead nurture. How do you convert, kind of that whole cycle of life? Because a lot of you guys will be like, well, I met this nice couple at an open house. Now what? Or I talked to 5 people last week and they all are thinking about selling or buying. Now what? Right? And to me, if you don't understand how to take somebody through the pipeline, the sales funnel process, if you will, to get to conversion, you're going to miss the boat on a lot of people. And it's also, how do you know when not to help somebody? When is somebody not worth your time, when you need to say, hey, you need to wait on the sidelines, or et cetera. Okay. So that's next week's topic, but I'm going to leave you guys with this. This is like my little give back. Go ahead, Will.
Sorry to interrupt you, Anne. I want to make sure that everybody's clear. It's 2 weeks from today.
Oh, I'm so sorry. 2 weeks from today. My apologies.
It's 2 weeks from today. And as we go, you guys, we didn't get to all the material that we were excited to share with you guys today, but as we go, we're going to layer in more examples. We're going to have more guests, and we also plan to layer in more examples, specific examples, having to do with the difference between lead generating activities that lead quickly to cash, results versus marketing activities that enhance your business over time and also lead to cash results, but not always as quickly. We hope that we can help you guys by hearing from others, success stories, and also the class concepts that we're bringing. You'll start to hopefully refine like how you're thinking about the difference between cash producing activities that are immediate and others that are more long-term oriented, so that you don't work hard on too many things that aren't likely to produce results quickly.
Yeah.
It's got to be a mix of immediate lead gen activities and also the longer term, softer marketing things that enhance your business and over time pay off big.
Yes, exactly. So here's what I would leave you guys with if you want to implement something that is super powerful this week to get interaction going with people. Does everybody have a smartphone? I would hope so. Does anybody know how to do a video text? Kind of simple. You go into your text, okay? You choose a contact. I'm going to say Will for the example of this class. I just pulled up Will, okay? He's on my text. I push the camera button. I push video. I turn it on me. And I say, hey, Will, great class today. Thanks so much, right? And then I send the video text and it shows up as a video, not just a written text. Send 10 of these out or 5 of these out every single day this week to somebody you know, to your prospective clients, to leads. I did this last week. I always try to call people because I like conversation, but if I can't reach them or I think it might be more personable, I do a little video text. I got 3 people that are like, thank you for your text. Let's talk about selling, okay? People want to see your face. It builds trust, audience, etc. So don't be afraid to do it. And it's a wonderful way to wish somebody a good morning. I do this with my dad.
Can you see that?
Yeah, put it up closer, Will. See that?
I can't see myself on screen, so
yeah, we can see it.
Okay. I mean, it showed up that quickly, and it's so powerful.
And do this to people you love. Okay, start with people you love. Like, hey, Dad, I love my dad. He loves it when he gets these video texts from me. So I send it to him all the time because he loves it. Send it out to people you really, really want to, like, send them a really loving video text. It enhances your vibe and it gets you going. And then start sending it out like, hey, we talked about 6 months ago and you were interested in selling your house after the first of the year. I wanted to just check in with you. Are you ready to talk about getting on the market? Let's set up a time to get together. Hey, you mentioned you wanted to buy an investment property this year in Newburgh. Let's talk about what that looks like. Do you have a minute to chat today? Send those kind of video texts out to your prospectives. You'd be shocked what happens. People are like, wow, that is amazing, right? Anybody think they're going to do that? I promise you, it's very, very helpful.
Try it, you guys. We want to be respectful of your time. We really want to honor the time that we've allotted for this class and end as close to being on time as we can. We're about 5 minutes over, but for next time, it would be fun to hear from some of you. If you try that, tell us what happens. And another thing we wanted to leave you with for next time, think about what are you willing to do between now and our next class 2 weeks from now to start moving toward your goals. Whatever your goals are, we just want this to be a safe place where we can interact and you can just be honest about, hey, I did this or that.
I don't know who's going, but hey, we're 5 minutes past the hour, but Will's got a good point. Maybe think about like your goals and are you willing to share your goals next time we talk? And hopefully this helped to get you guys rolling for the next 2 weeks.
Sorry about that. I got a phone call, but I think that covers it. You guys, we're going to send out a link to this recording. We hope you guys found value in this. We hope you'll come back. And Ann, do you want to add anything before we wrap up?
That's it. You guys are awesome. Thanks for your time today and rock it out for the next 2 weeks.
Thanks for showing up on a Monday
you.
morning, 9 o'clock.
Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
On my tablet.
Thanks for taking the time to be with us this morning.
I got the message
Absolutely.
that it did
Thanks
not
for showing
deliver.
up.
So then I had to turn around and do it on.
That was awesome.
How did we